Well, you know that when it comes to Ukraine, in Washington, there was a clear commitment by all 32 allies that there is an irreversible path for Ukraine to come into NATO. Not with an end date, not understanding this as part of a peace settlement, but clearly as a longer-term commitment by all 32 allies, and we are building that bridge as we speak, with the command in Wiesbaden, with in Poland, JTEC, which is capturing all the lessons, and of course all the other cooperation ongoing between NATO countries and Ukraine. Thank you so much.
This is my video update on this Tuesday afternoon, June the 3rd, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off, of course, with the talks that concluded in Istanbul yesterday between Russia and Ukraine, with Turkey mediating, and not much of a negotiation process. It was more Ukraine presenting their draft memorandum to Russia, and Russia presenting their draft memorandum to Ukraine. The Ukraine memorandum, we've talked about it many times on this channel and on the Duran. Nothing more than Keith Kellogg's 22-point peace plan, his freeze plan, his DMZ plan, the plan that Russia has rejected 1,000 times, but Kellogg is very proud of his peace, freeze, armistice 22-point plan, and so that is what Ukraine presented to the Russian Federation. The Russian Federation presented their draft memorandum plan to the Ukrainian side. And this was the first time that we got a look at this plan, because Russia refused to release this draft memorandum before the meetings in Istanbul. And I've talked about why Russia refused to release this memorandum, and they made the right call, because if they had released this memorandum ahead of time, it would have been leaked to the media, and all kinds of sabotage would have taken place around this memorandum. So they did the smart thing. They did not release this memorandum ahead of time. They presented it to Ukraine in person in Istanbul in order to avoid any kind of leaks. And the memorandum from Russia was broken up in 3 parts. It's a very easy to understand document, which I think is a very smart move by Russia. Keep in mind that Russia's terms have been presented for a year now. Putin presented those terms in June 2024, and no one in the collective West ever talked about Putin's terms to conclude the conflict in Ukraine. They avoided it. For the last year, the mainstream media avoided talking about Putin's terms. Collective West leaders refused to talk about Putin's terms. And so the Russians, what they presented was Istanbul Plus, in a very easy to read, clear format, broken up into 3 parts. And there are some changes to the original Istanbul statement that Putin made on June 2024. And I will get to those in a second. But if you do want to read the plan, the memorandum, it's all over the interwebs. It's a very quick read. It's in English, and it's very clear and concise. You don't need to be a lawyer. You don't need to be a diplomat. A 5-year-old could read this document and get a clear understanding as to what Russia's terms are. And I think Russia played this one very well by delivering a very clear, very concise, very easy to understand plan. There is no way that the collective West, Ukraine, the collective West media can come out and say that they don't understand what Russia is asking for, and what Russia is demanding is unclear, or the document is too long, or anything like that, or that Russia's trying to trick them. There's no way they can say that. So it is Istanbul Plus. I'm not going to get into all of the details of the plan because me and Alexander recorded a video on the Duran where we go into quite a bit of detail on the plan. So that video will be on the Duran channel later today. So definitely check that out. But I will say some of the differences or the small changes. Actually, one change is not so small. One change is pretty significant. And it's a change which has made Istanbul Plus even more harsh for Ukraine and for the collective West. It's going to be even more difficult for the collective West, for the United States, for Ukraine to swallow these terms. And so let me just get to the one significant change from what Putin said in June of 2024 to this document. And that one significant change is that Russia is saying that the territories, the 4 new Russian Federation territories, Kherson, Zaporozhye, Lugansk, and Donetsk, as well as Crimea, must be recognized, legally recognized, internationally recognized as part of the Russian Federation. They are suggesting that this goes through the United Nations, this goes through the Security Council, but the international community, that includes the United States, that includes Ukraine, that includes the Europeans, that includes the EU, they have to officially recognize the 4 territories and Crimea as part of the Russian Federation. Officially, via international law, via the United Nations, via the Security Council, they have to recognize this territory as part of the Russian Federation. And of course, the plan says that, the memorandum says that the Ukraine military has to leave these territories. And I'm talking about international recognition of the 4 territories, including Crimea. But when I'm talking about Zaporozhye, Kherson, Donetsk, and Lugansk, that means the entirety of these oblasts has to be recognized as part of the Russian Federation. So that's a significant change. It's not a huge departure from June 2024, but it is something that Putin did not demand from his statement on June 2024. There was no demand that these oblasts in their entirety be recognized via the United Nations, be recognized by the international community as part of the Russian Federation. But now Russia's demanding this. It's in the memorandum. So that's significant. The other change from June 2024 is that when it comes to a ceasefire, Russia actually put a provision in this document about a ceasefire, which was not in June 2024. Basically, the memorandum is split into 3 parts. Let me rewind. Let's rewind. And let's go back to the structure of the memorandum that Russia presented. They presented a memorandum which is broken up in 3 parts. The first part is the actual terms, which is Istanbul Plus. They talk about demilitarization. Ukraine has to demilitarize, no entry into NATO, denazification. the 4 regions and Crimea becoming part of the Russian Federation in their entirety, the international recognition of these regions, lifting of martial law. They go through all the terms, recognizing the Russia Russia becomes an official language. Russian becomes an official language. Stopping the persecution of the Russian Orthodox Church, recognizing the legitimacy of the Russian Orthodox Church. They go through all of the points of Istanbul Plus, and it's 12 points. Very clear to understand the terms. That's the first part. The second part is I would say is the new part that has gone into Istanbul Plus, and that is Russia's options that they're presenting to the collective West, to Ukraine, for a ceasefire. And then the third part is a timeline. How do you get to a final settlement? And the third part does talk about an election. So it says that there has to be an election in Ukraine, which is basically Russia saying Zelensky must go. Zelensky is out. So going back to the second part of the memorandum, which is the new part to Istanbul Plus, it talks about a ceasefire. What Russia will accept in order to get to a 30-day ceasefire, and Russia presented 2 options. Actually, let me read you the 2 options for a ceasefire. The first option, so section 1 is called Key Parameters for a Definitive Settlement, and it is 12 points. Section 2 is Ceasefire Conditions, and it has the 2 options. And section 3 is Sequence of Steps and Timeline for Implementations. Elections are conducted and government bodies are formed on the territory of Ukraine. Zelensky has to go in the timeline. That's basically what Russia is saying. So the second part, which is ceasefire options, option number 1 says commencement of complete withdrawal of the AFU and other Ukrainian paramilitary formations from the territory of the Russian Federation, including the DPR, LPR, and the Zaporozhye and Kherson regions, and their pullback from the borders of the Russian Federation to a distance agreed upon by the parties in accordance with provisions to be approved. And option number 2 is called the package proposal. It is 10 points. So you have option number 1, in order to get Russia to agree to a ceasefire, to a 30-day ceasefire. That's important. We're talking about a 30-day ceasefire. In order to get Russia to agree to this, option number 1 is Ukraine has to leave all of the territories, the 4 territories. They have to leave all of it. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is the package proposal. And the first point of option number 2 in this package proposal is prohibition on redeployment of the AFU and other Ukrainian paramilitary formations, except for movements aimed at withdrawal from the borders of the Russian Federation to a distance agreed upon by the parties. Point 2 is cessation of mobilization and commencement of demobilization. Part 3 is cessation of foreign supplies of military products and foreign military assistance to Ukraine, including the provision of satellite communication services and intelligence data. Point 4 is elimination of military presence of third countries on Ukrainian territory, cessation of participation of foreign specialists in military operations on Ukraine's side. Point 5 is guarantees of Ukraine's renunciation of sabotage and subversive activities against the Russian Federation and its citizens. 6, establishment of a bilateral center for monitoring and control of the ceasefire regime. 7, mutual amnesty for political prisoners and release of detained civilians. 8, lifting of martial law in Ukraine. 9, announcement of the date of elections of the president of Ukraine, the Verkhovna Rada, which must take place no later than 100 days after the lifting of the martial law. And 10, signing of an agreement on the implementation of provisions contained in Section 1. So those are the 2 options. Both options are going to be unacceptable to the collective West. It's going to be unacceptable to Ukraine. Option number 1, Ukraine has already said no way. The Europeans have already said no way. Parts of the Trump administration have already said no way to option number 1. And option number 2, they're also going to reject it. Elections in Ukraine is what it's saying. The lifting of martial law. Demilitarization is what it's saying. demobilization. No more mobilization, no more sharing of intel, no more mercenaries, no more weapons from anybody, no weapons going into Ukraine. All of that has to stop. Everything has to stop. Ukraine has to begin to demobilize. No foreign presence in Ukraine, no military presence from third countries, no more sabotage. No more sabotage operations, which means no more foreign intel services operating in Ukraine, no more CIA and MI6 in Ukraine. And then you get to elections, and then you sign, and eventually, if this is successful, this 30-day ceasefire, then eventually, and you have the elections, 30-day ceasefire, 100 days to the elections, and then you can get an agreement, which could be signed by a new government. So there you have it. That is what Russia presented to Ukraine. When it comes to the demilitarization, Russia did not get into any specifics. It didn't get into any numbers as to the size of the Ukraine military. But I think we're talking about a significant demilitarization. The goals of the special military operation, it's all in this document. All of the goals will be fulfilled, and it's all spelled out in this document. And I will still say that that this document is being very generous to Ukraine. Ukraine will be allowed to exist as a country. It will exist as a country. It will have access to the Black Sea if they accept this document, which I can't see them accepting it. But if they were to accept Russia's terms, Ukraine will still exist as a sovereign entity. It will have access to the Black Sea. It will still have Odessa. There's no mention of Odessa. There's no mention of the European Union. It does say no entry into NATO, but the document does not say that Ukraine cannot enter the European Union. So, I mean, these are harsh terms, and they're a little bit more harsh than Istanbul Plus for the reasons that I outlined, the international recognition of the territories, but they're still, in my opinion, very, very acceptable for Ukraine if it makes the right decision, and for the collective West. If it were to make the right decision, then they should. They should, they could, they can accept these terms, and Ukraine will exist. It will exist. It will have the Black Sea. It will have Odessa, and possibly it can continue its path towards the EU. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to discuss about the actual document that I missed. I think I covered most of it. So there was a meeting that took place before the two sides met, but it was a meeting, a secret meeting, a meeting in private between Medinsky, the Russian negotiator, chief negotiator, and Umerov, the chief negotiator for Ukraine. We don't know any of the details as to what they discussed, but according to Turkish media sources, their meeting in private actually lasted longer than the talks between both delegations. So I think that's interesting. And what else? There's one more thing in the terms. They say that, the terms do not mention the 300 billion in Russian frozen assets as well. I mean, these terms they're harsh, but they are acceptable. They're very acceptable for the collective West because the terms do not mention the return of the Russian frozen assets. This memorandum does not say anything about the Russian frozen assets, but it does say that any reparation claims and all of that stuff will be waived by both sides. So no more talk about reparations and stuff like that. So there was an agreement between Moscow and Kiev on a prisoner swap that was agreed on. Another large prisoner swap, 1,000 plus prisoners for both sides. The interesting part about this prisoner swap is that Russia, I've read reports which claim that Russia has between 4 and 6,000 Ukraine prisoners of war, and Ukraine only has, I've read, around 800 Russian prisoners of war total. And so if there was to be another prisoner swap, you would be talking about civilians or people that have been imprisoned by the Zelensky regime that would probably be in this swap. Civilians and people that have been imprisoned by the Zelensky regime, because once they give over the 800 prisoners of war that they're holding, the Ukrainians, they will have no more Russian prisoners of war. And I think that's pretty important because it could be hinting at a big Russian move. If this agreement is not accepted by the collective West, then this prisoner swap could indicate that Russia is going to say, you know what, we got all of our men back, we got all our people back, we got most of the civilians back, we got all the civilians back, we even got Ukrainians who were imprisoned by the Zelensky regime unfairly for whatever Zelensky imprisoned them for. We even got them to safety. So now that everyone is back and our deal has been rejected, now we can push forward. So that's what this prisoner swap might be indicating. Ukraine, they have anywhere between 4 to 6,000 prisoners. Russia has 4 to 6,000 Ukrainian prisoners of war. So for them, 1,000 prisoners exchanged. It's not going to mean that Russia, for example, it's not going to mean that Russia has to give up the Azov guys, which is something that the Banderites were very upset about in the last 1,000 prisoner exchange. They were very upset at the fact that Russia did not hand over any of the Azov Banderites. Russia also, Medinsky also said that Russia is going to unilaterally return the bodies of 6,000 Ukrainian soldiers, fallen soldiers, 6,000 Ukrainians that died in this conflict. Russia is going to return those bodies for a proper burial. And Medinsky said it's a humanitarian gesture and it's the right thing to do. And he said that they agreed with Ukraine to, Ukraine said it's going to look at it. Russia said that they agree to this, but Ukraine has to look it over. Umerov, the Ukraine negotiator, he said that Ukraine will also return the bodies of Russian soldiers, fallen soldiers, 6,000. But then it seems that all of this has been walked back, and a lot of analysts are thinking this has been walked back because Ukraine does not have 6,000 Russian soldiers, the fallen Russian soldiers. Ukraine doesn't have 6,000 to give back. So there's a little bit of confusion and a gray area there with Umerov's statement. But what was I saying? Medinsky, he said this is a humanitarian gesture, and he said that if Russia has to, it will unilaterally hand over the soldiers, and they're going to create 2 to 3 areas on the front line, which will be ceasefire areas, which will also allow both sides to go into these ceasefire areas and to take their soldiers. An exchange will happen, or at least these will be ceasefire areas where Ukraine can take their fallen soldiers for proper burial. Zelensky did not like this. Zelensky flipped out at this suggestion. He lashed out at Russia, at Medinsky, at the negotiators. What did Churchill number 2 say? He called them idiots. He said the negotiators are idiots. I believe he was in Lithuania or Latvia or Estonia. Once again, in typical Zelensky fashion, there's the terrorist attack on the trains, the trains in Bryansk and Kursk. A terrorist attack happens, and what does Zelensky do? He flies out of Ukraine. Typical Zelensky style, right? Anyway, he goes to the Baltics, and he participated in a Q&A, and he was asked about the news that there's going to be a 2 to 3 day ceasefire so that Ukraine can collect its fallen soldiers. And Zelensky, instead of being happy about this, instead of saying this is good, we want to give a proper burial to our soldiers. This is something that's not out of the ordinary. This has happened in wars in the past. In World War I believe this was common practice to allow a ceasefire and to designate ceasefire zones so fallen soldiers could be returned. But Zelensky did not like this at all. He said that the Russian negotiators are idiots. And he said the Russians, are ready for a ceasefire for 2 to 3 days to pick up the dead from the battlefield. I think they are idiots, he said, arguing that any truce should be aimed at saving lives, not retrieving bodies. So instead of saying this is a good thing and the bodies are going to return back home to their families and they're going to receive a proper burial, Zelensky called them idiots. And he once again said that a 30-day ceasefire is needed.
Як вони сказали щодо Ceasefire, вони готові на Ceasefire 2-3 дні, щоб забирати вбитих з поля бою. Я вважаю, що ідіоти, тому що, в принципі, Ceasefire для того, щоб не було вбитих. Тобто ви бачите, бачите настрій. Тобто для них це питання просто невеличкої паузи.
Anyway, that's everything that happened in Istanbul. Pretty much everything that's happened in Istanbul. Let's move on now, and let's talk about Medvedev. Medvedev, he posted on social media, to everyone who is anxious and awaiting retribution, it's natural to worry. That's a trait of any normal person. Retribution is inevitable. At the same time, keep in mind, 1, our army is actively advancing and will continue to do so. Everything that must be destroyed will be destroyed, and those who must be eliminated will disappear. Point 2, the negotiations in Istanbul are not about reaching a compromised peace based on someone's unrealistic terms, but about achieving our swift victory and the complete destruction of the neo-Nazi regime. That is the essence of the Russian memorandum published today. That's Medvedev's comments. So the advance of the Russian military is picking up speed, especially in the Sumy direction. I mean, Russia is really moving fast in the direction of Sumy. They're capturing, it seems like they're capturing 2 to 3 villages every single day. The collective West media is not talking about this. They're not reporting about what is happening in Sumy, but Medvedev is bringing it up, and I'm bringing it up. The Russian military continues to advance across the entire front line. But in Sumy, they're really moving fast, moving very, very fast. So after the negotiations, Yermak was also at the negotiations, actually. It was, I think Umerov was the chief negotiator, or he was the one that was engaging more with Medinsky, even though Yermak was the top official. Yermak being Zelensky's entertainment lawyer, and many people believe Yermak to be the real brains behind Churchill #2. But Yermak, he got on a plane, and he is flying to the United States. He is going to the USA. He is going to meet with the Trump administration, I would guess, maybe with Lindsey Graham, maybe with Keith Kellogg, maybe with President Trump. Mertz is also going to be there, I believe, at the same time, or around the same time. BlackRock Mertz, so maybe he's going to meet with BlackRock Mertz as well. Turkish media is reporting that the U.S. ambassador to Turkey is saying that the Trump administration is fed up with the delays in getting to a ceasefire. It looks like the Trump administration was actually thinking that they were going to get a 30-day ceasefire out of these talks, and that's not what happened. What they got was a harsher Istanbul Plus, but still a deal that they should accept. My God, should they accept this deal? Trump, take this deal. But he won't. He will not take this deal, even though he should take this deal because this is the best that that they're going to get. This is the best the collective West, Ukraine, and the U.S. is going to get. If they don't accept this deal, then it's just going to get a lot worse for the U.S. It's going to get a lot worse for Trump. It's going to get a lot worse for the collective West, for Ukraine, for Europe. Anyway, Trump is getting fed up, according to the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Turkey. He's getting very frustrated, and the U.S. is ready to walk away. And even if the U.S. does walk away, which is the right thing to do, take the deal. That's the right thing to do, is tell Ukraine to take the deal. And if Ukraine doesn't take the deal, then say you're walking away. But Trump is getting frustrated. And Yermak got on a plane. And he's going to go to D.C., he's going to meet with Trump, and they're going to figure out what do they do now. They've tried everything. They've tried everything. They've tried ATACMS. The Biden administration tried wonder weapons, ATACMS, javelins, drones, switchblade drones, and Ghost of Kievs, and Snake Islands, and Zaporozhye Avengers, and 16,000 sanctions, and ICC warrants going after Putin. They've tried everything, and they tried the drone swarm during Victory Day, and then they tried this Operation Spiderweb, of which Medvedev is saying something's going to happen with this as well. There will be some sort of a retaliation, retribution, and nothing's working. Russia remains firm in its position. What do you do now? Because this is Trump's war, and whatever happens, Trump is going to be blamed for this defeat. The question is, do you take the hit now? Because it's going to be a cost. There's going to be a political cost. The neocons are going to be upset. If you pull out, if you walk out of Ukraine, the neocons will be upset. The Europeans will be upset. The mainstream media is going to really go hard at you. They'll start to bring up all the Russiagate stuff, and you're buddies with Putin. You're going to take all of this criticism, but at least you rip the Band-Aid off and you're out. Or do you just continue to stick with it? Do you ask for another 30, 40 billion? And do you continue to support Project Ukraine to the point where all is lost? And it comes at a time when who knows, you could be having midterms. It comes during midterms. I don't know. It comes at a time when Trump is not able to absorb the political cost like he could absorb the political cost now. So Yermak is going there. The point that I'm trying to make is Yermak is going to go there, and he's going to try to convince Trump, and he's going to talk with the Trump administration to get more money and get more weapons. He's going to say, and Yermak, Kellogg, Rubio, all these guys are going to say, you know what, Russia is not accepting a 30-day unconditional ceasefire. They continue to insist on Istanbul Plus. We need to place 500% sanctions. Lindsey Graham, 500% sanctions. We need to do it. We need to start firing the Taurus missiles into Moscow, and that's going to be the purpose of this trip from Yermak to the United States. And most likely, Trump is going to agree with Yermak, with Kellogg, with Rubio, and with Graham. So Zelensky also said yesterday, shifting gears just a bit, Zelensky said yesterday that Ukraine is short on gas by about €1 billion. That's right, short on gas supplies by about €1 billion. He said, we've agreed with Energy Minister Halushenko to look for ways to cover the potential shortfall. We've identified the required volume. We've secured half, but we're still short. Let's just say it's about €1 billion, he explained. And then Zelensky said that he's looking at Norway to help him out. Give me gas, Norway. Podolyak, call up these people in Norway and tell them to give me gas. Mr. President, you want to buy the gas? I don't want to buy the gas, Podolyak. Are you crazy? I want Norway to give me the gas, and they will give it to me. And they will give it to Zelensky. They will give it to him, no doubt about it. But yeah, Zelensky, short of gas. And this could cause a problem in the wintertime. This could cause big-time problems in the winter. And who's to blame for all of this? Zelensky's to blame for all of this. The collective West is to blame for all of this because they encouraged Zelensky to close off pipelines. Remember 6 months ago, Zelensky was closing off pipelines and he was branding it as a big, Ukraine victory, really sticking it to Russia, closing those pipelines. Which pipeline did he close? The Sudza, or I don't know, the Druzhba, or the Sudza, I don't even know, I don't remember. But he was closing off all the pipelines of the Russian gas. The end of 2000, I believe, the end of 2024, right? And it was a big European Union Ukraine victory. We're finally free from Russian gas. We're free from Russian gas. Hooray! Hip hop, hooray! Oh. and now Zelensky's saying, we're kind of short on gas. Kind of short on gas. maybe we shouldn't have closed off all the pipelines. Clown world, man. Clown world. All right, real quick, how we doing on time? I can't even see. I don't even know. I can't see how I'm doing on time. Anyway, I'll speed things up. A plan was presented to Iran by the Trump administration, by Witkoff, and it's a bit murky as to what's going on. The plan was presented to Iran, and at first the reports were that this plan was saying zero uranium enrichment. You're not allowed to do anything with uranium, no nuclear, nothing, not even for civilian purposes to Iran. And then we got reports from Axios. Iran didn't like this. And then we got a report from Axios, which is saying that the U.S. dropped its zero enrichment demand on Iran. Trump has agreed to low enrichment and no dismantling of nuclear facilities, according to Axios. And then we got reports from Reuters saying that's not the case, and Iran is rejecting the deal. So that's my update there. We still have to wait and see what's going on. In other news, the Dutch coalition government has collapsed. The government led by Prime Minister Dick Schoof has fallen apart after Geert Wilders, the head of the far-right PVV, the Party for Freedom, pulled his party out, citing differences with his partners over immigration policies. This is coming from the German DW News. That's why they say the far-right Geert Wilders, because everything's far-right. But yeah, Zelensky curse once again in the Netherlands. So another government bites the dust. In Germany, from Berliner Zeitung, they have an article with the title, "Are the Taurus already in Ukraine?" If the Taurus were to help Ukraine against Russia, they would have to have been delivered. The Federal Ministry of Defense is under cover. This article was published yesterday, and here's the first paragraph from this article. For a few days now, there has been persistent speculation that Ukraine should already be owned. This is translated, by the way, from German to English. Should already own is probably what the translation should say. Should already own Taurus cruise missiles. London-based geopolitics analyst Alexander Mercouris from the Duran blog recently claimed that he was certain that the Taurus had long been in Ukraine and were being prepared for use. The participation of the Germans and the Americans would be needed, said Mercouris. Yeah, that's our guess. That's our guess. We're saying probably, Alexander's right. I've said it too. Probably the missiles are already in Ukraine, sitting in some warehouse. We're not 1,000% certain. Obviously, who can be 1,000% certain, except for BlackRock Mertz and the Americans and the Russians. But if I was a betting man, I would say, yeah, those Taurus are probably there. But interesting that we were cited, that Alexander was cited in this article. And what else? Oh my God. What else is a clown world? I've rambled on way too long, and I've got so many good stories. Anyway, let's speed it up. Clown world, Germany, Annalena Baerbock, elected as the UN General Assembly head. Thank God. Thank God we're going to have some more clown world material. There was no one else running against Baerbock to be the president of the General Assembly, not the chief of the United Nations, but it's a one-year term. It's by region. So the last term was Africa. Now it's Europe. There was no other candidates from Europe. Annalena was the default pick to represent Europe. And so she was elected. There's going to be some really good clown worlds coming up from the United Nations. The UN posted the news of Annalena Baerbock of Germany elected as president of the General Assembly at its 80th session, September 25th to September 2026, September 25 to September 2026. And the first reply comes from the parody account of Annalena Baerbock. This is the parody X account, which says, Danke für die Wahl. Thanks for the erection. That's a parody account. But yeah, she's going to have to deal with a lot of voting. You know, General Assembly votes. And she's going to have to deal with a lot of voting. And that means counting a lot of numbers. Right? So not Annalena's strong point, Annalena Baerbock math. But we'll see if she can make it. She's going to have to deal with some very complicated mathematics for Annalena. A lot of numbers, a lot of votes, 120 countries for, 100 countries against, and countries that are going to abstain, and she's going to have to add things up. A lot of it, of course, will be done by computer, but still, it's going to be a real big problem for Annalena dealing with all of the mathematics that are involved when votes take place. All right, I think that's the video. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch like what I'm wearing in this video update. There is a link in the description box down below. Take care.